Hey, Blake T. Wild here, and welcome back to the Ultimate Year, the time when I'm focusing my comic coverage on the Ultimate Marvel Universe. No, the original one. God, I wish it was the new one. But anyway, on this week's episode, I'm covering a comic that was requested by no one. No one has ever asked me to talk about this. No one's ever brought it up. I've never seen people discuss this book online, and there's reason for that. But with the upcoming Daredevil Born Again show coming to Disney Plus sometime next year, I figured that this was an ample enough time to take a look at this. But before I do get started, I'll be attending YumaCon October 5th to the 6th, 2024 in Yuma, Arizona. So stop on by if you're in the Southern Arizona, Southern California, Northern Mexico area, and you're free that weekend. Stop on by, say hi, check out my books. I'll have both issues of the Custodians, issues 1 and 2, out of a total of 6 that are on their way, available there. These books are only $15, over 50 pages. You won't get a deal like that from Marvel or DC, ladies and gentlemen, that is for sure. And I'll also have Destructo Boy, my other sci-fi zany little silly series, fun for all ages, available at the convention as well, alongside original art and posters. Or if you're unable to, head over to my Etsy shop, blaketwild.etsy.com, where you'll be able to pick up the issues on there as well. And the purchase of any comic on my Etsy shop comes with a free sketch. So if you purchase both issues of the Custodians, you're getting 2 sketches. If you purchase all 5 issues of Destructo Boy, that's 5 whole sketches. Head sketch of any character of your choosing. I'll draw Stay Puft. I'll draw Superman. One time somebody wanted me to draw them a K-pop star, and I did that too. What's that? You don't like physical comics? Okay, great, because I have a Patreon, and over on my Patreon, you can check out all the issues that I have available, created entirely by myself for as little as $2, alongside early access to videos when available, new series, and, God, what else do I have? Movie commentaries, original art, and stuff like that over there. Check everything out, it really helps me out, and I hope to see you guys at YumaCon. Released in 2002, written by Greg Rucka, with art by Salvador Larroca. Oh, no. Not old Let's Trace Some Action Figures Sal LaRocca. Not Salvador makes Greg Land look like Alex Ross LaRocca. Oh, we are in for it now, ladies and gentlemen. Oh my god, what an utter dichotomy. Just on this spectrum that we have. Greg Rucka, Salvador Larroca. This is Ultimate Daredevil and Elektra. This book unfortunately has to begin in August at Columbia University in New York. Seemingly this would be in the 90s, I suppose. Elektra Natchios and her father move into the dorm room, her father carrying the luggage and Elektra carrying a bunch of posters? Surely not. It's gotta be like some kind of martial arts like training thing, right? Elektra's roommate introduces herself as Phoebe McAllister, and the two quickly hit it off. Then Elektra's father reminds her of how proud he is of her and leaves. And then Elektra begins pinning up posters of Bruce Lee on the wall. Then she backflips from one bed to the other and grabs a really wet slice of pizza pie. The camera focuses on a teddy bear dressed in a gi as Elektra tells Phoebe that she's practiced martial arts since she was 6 years old and her mom is dead. And Phoebe says that she can play guitar. I told you they really hit it off. A month later, Phoebe and Elektra walk across campus and they see a group of guys tormenting a young woman and sexually harassing her. Elektra decides that she's had enough and marches over to where she goes face to face with Calvin Langstrom. Did Greg Rucka just kind of forget that he's writing for Marvel? Also, I did look up this character, just in case that wasn't a joke that I could make and it actually was an obscure Marvel character I had never heard of before. It's not. The character only appears here, but I wanted to also know if anything develops with the name of that character later. Maybe he does appear in further comics. In the actual universe, also no. But I did come across this Ultimate Marvel fan wiki where under abilities and traits, someone has taken the time to write, quote, "The heir to an extremely wealthy fortune, Langstrom has little regard for others, especially women. He had no problem using rape and arson to exert his power." So cool! Spoiler, I guess. Calvin tells Legs, as he refers to Elektra, even though she's pretty average height and, like, not... She's wearing cargo pants. It's not like she's in a mini skirt. Anyway, he tells her to go away because she has clearly no idea who he is. Calvin, aka Trey, acts so cartoonishly sexist to her that it actually manages to circle back around to being realistically sexist. And then Elektra grabs him in a hold, drawn to existence by Salvador LaRocca. She forces him to drop the notebook and releases him from her grip, and Calvin scuttles away. A month later, in November, Elektra and the blonde girl that she rescued, Melissa, meet with Phoebe, and they've started doing martial arts now. With, get this, Master Stone. Get it? Daredevil. Okay, hold on. Daredevil has stick. But, wait for it, but Elektra has stone. Huh? Fun fact, I found, looking up this one-time character, she actually does make a later reappearance in the Ultimate Universe via a flashback, apparently, that happens in Blade vs. the Ultimate Avengers story, where all the heroes become vampires and the Hulk is a vampire, and it also involves the second Daredevil of the Ultimate Marvel Universe, and a vampire army, because don't forget that Daredevil in the Ultimate Universe was trained by Stick to fight vampires. And you can check that video out. I covered it about a year ago. God almighty, do I hate this book. I am barely a fucking quarter of the way through, and it's... Oh my god! I can't stand it. I can't stand writing this script. It's just so ugly to look at. The art looks like that Mark Hamill Jack in the Box comic I did a video on. How does it look so cheap? My own independent comic, The Custodians Agents of Cross, looks better than this. And I'm a guy making fucking comics in his fucking extra bedroom office. This is from a real company. So one day at the college gym, Elektra spots a hot redhead who is really fit and jacked do some crazy gymnastics. Also, he's blind. Elektra eventually finds out who he is, and one day when he's leaving class with his friend Foggy Nelson, who are discussing a criminology reading they've been assigned on a report about someone named Zaz. Now, it's not spelled the DC way that you think of Mr. Zaz. It's the opposite, so the Z's and the S's are flipped. But come on! Anyway, Elektra introduces herself and gives Matt a bouquet of flowers, and then the two quickly abandon Foggy to go get some coffee. Later, love-struck Elektra and a tired Phoebe return to their dorm to find the door left open. And inside, they find the brutalized Melissa. They take her to the hospital, police are called, she tells them that Calvin Langstrom raped her, and to a shocking turn that I'm sure none of you or the readers at the time saw coming, the police won't do anything because Calvin's family are rich politicians. Dun dun dun. Gee whiz, I sure hope this character who is a vigilante ninja in the mainstream universe can figure out a way to stop this. Sometime later, I am skipping a lot. Because it's either depressing or just does nothing to advance the story. If you want to know, go read this horrible book yourself. Sorry, Greg Rucka, but this clearly is not your best tale, and LaRocca isn't doing you any favors, man. Elektra sneaks out into the night and is unknowingly followed by a man cosplaying as the Man Without Fear Daredevil. She sneaks across the city, I guess, and finds her way to the top of an apartment building where she breaks through the security by smashing a box with her foot and then ramming a snapped rake handle into the wiring. Then she infiltrates the bedroom of Calvin Langstrom. He wakes up to find Elektra's hand wrapped around his throat, and she tells him not to try anything or she'll squeeze harder and harder until there's nothing left in him. She tells him that she better not have to come back after this one warning, and then leaves. Then she leaps across the rooftops and is startled by Matt Murdock, the Stranger in Black, and a fight breaks out and Elektra freaks and escapes. The next day, Elektra goes to see Matt in his dorm room because she feels conflicted about what she did last night. Also, she reveals to him that she loves him, and they cuddle in bed and fall asleep. Hey, remember when I read off that traits and attributes section? Yeah, the other thing is coming up now. Later that day, Elektra is informed by Phoebe that something happened to her father. His shop and home have been burnt to the ground. Matt Murdock sneaks his way past the police and firefighters line and finds a piece of ceramic? cloth, toilet paper. I don't know what this thing is supposed to be, but Matt smells it and sticks it in his pocket for later. Later that night, Matt in black gymnasticizes his way across the rooftops, breaks into Trey's apartment, crawls around on his hands and knees, and tries to figure out if the thing he found at the crime scene belongs to this rich psychopathic asshole. Unfortunately, he's caught by Trey and his buddies. Matt kicks Trey in the face with his trainers and uses the other guy as a stepladder to escape back out of the skylight. Elsewhere, Elektra finds some size just sitting around Stone's dojo, while Matt listens across the entire city, I guess, and hears a lot of terrible stuff happening. Then he hears what he's looking for. Someone discussing how they got paid $5,000 to firebomb a place in Queens. Cut to the bar, where these two guys are talking about how they got paid $5,000 to firebomb a place in Queens. These guys are named Monk and Craiggit? C-R-A-I-G-H-T. How do you pronounce that? You tell me. Anyway, they leave the bar and Matt shows up. The duo pull out knives and, well, yeah, I think you know where this is going. It cuts away, and an unspecified amount of time later. Okay, here's the thing. Suddenly, Matt and Elektra are no longer together, and Elektra just hates him for some reason. There is a scene I didn't discuss, because it goes on for a bit too long, but Matt goes to the dojo as the stranger in black, and he tells her that Trey didn't do it, and Elektra realizes or comes to the conclusion that Trey must have paid someone off to firebomb a place in Queens for no less than $5,000, and then she still attacks Matt anyway? Like, she thinks that he's working for Trey. He convinces her seemingly that he isn't. She attacks him no matter what. And it kind of just seems like we're supposed to infer that she knows it's him and is now feeling betrayed. But neither the writing or the art do anything to convey this and help it move along as an actual story. So now Elektra's sitting on a bench, and she trips Matt with a book, seemingly because she knows he has extra senses, based on nothing she could have learned aside from, I guess when he spoke to her, she recognized the voice, maybe? But if that's what it's supposed to be, newsflash, that doesn't work in a comic. Anyway, Matt plays up the blind thing, and Elektra asks if he'd ever lied to her or has lied to her. He says no. She prepares to punch him, but Matt doesn't react as he tells her that Trey Langstrom got arrested for conspiracy to commit arson. Matt asks her out to dinner, and she says that she'll be over to his place. Oh my God, this book is still going. So, Trey's psychopathic father beats the shit out of his son and orders him to make Elektra and the girls pay for messing with their family. Sometime later, Phoebe and Melissa enact Elektra's plan. They find Trey and his buddies and walk past talking about how Elektra has a routine that she is doing of walking in the park late at night by herself every night. Unfortunately, they also come across Matt, who has overheard this, and he demands to know what Elektra's planning, and Phoebe cracks and reveals it all. That night, Elektra becomes outfitted in her Ultimate Marvel attire that we all know and are aware of. That night in the park, Trey sits perched in all black with his father's handgun, waiting for a woman that he thinks is Elektra. It's not. She's actually behind him. She holds her sai against his skull, orders him to drop the gun, and takes off his mask and orders him to his knees as Trey begs for his life. Elektra asks if saying please made him stop when Melissa was screaming, and then she slashes him across his face. Then she prepares to strike into him when a billy club slams against her beautiful Greek face and ricochets off. Holy shit. Matt tells her to stop and that he won't let her murder someone. Trey tries to escape and Elektra launches a sai at him, striking right at the base of his skull in that nice little sweet spot of the spine. Matt steps between Trey's no doubt crippled body and Elektra and tells her that he won't let her do this. She demands to know why he's always defending him. And Matt says he doesn't care about Langstrom, he cares about the law. Then he unmasks and they have a fight and Matt apologizes and Elektra tells him it's too late. She pushes him aside, walks over to Trey, slams her sai into his femoral artery, and Matt races over to stop the bleeding as Elektra tells him that he has roughly 10 minutes of bleeding left before he croaks, and that Matt can either tourniquet him and get him to the hospital, or he can come with her. Matt says nothing and simply watches as she leaves into the darkness of the woods. Then he hoists Langstrom over his back and begins to run. The next day, Matt returns to their apartment and finds Foggy with a bouquet of flowers that Elektra left last night. And for some reason, Sal, our good old pal Sal LaRocca, drew Matt to have devil horns in his shadow, even though it makes no sense. Clever visual, but at least make his hair look disheveled or something to have some kind of reasoning for it to be the shadow to be casted like that. Come on. The end. Let me know what you thought of the second worst Daredevil story in the comments below. This is rough. This was a stupid story. It should have been called Elektra and Daredevil, but instead it's called Daredevil and Elektra, even though he's barely in it. It's Elektra's story. And, you know, you get Greg Rucka from a couple years down the line. I'm sure he could have done something better than this that was really poignant and, you know, stood out. Maybe actually would have been able to see a continuation of the Daredevil Elektra storyline series, which there is another one of. For some reason, they came back to this idea and brought Sal with them. But, oof, that was rough. It's definitely not Greg Rucka's strongest story, although I did quite like the last 6 to 8 pages in the park. Unfortunately, that takes 4 issues and 100 pages to get to that fucking point. And the best thing about this, I feel, is the logo on the cover. And just the art. It's atrocious. It's terrible. It's just so ugly and just disorienting to look at. I don't like it. Like I said, it looks like a cheap, gimmicky corporate comic that you would see, such as at a Jack in the Box about Mark Hamill. Check out that video, by the way. It's also inked by Danny Mickey, which is surprising because I feel like he's a big name in like the comic book industry, so you expect a little more, but I guess not. He doesn't do any favors to LaRocca's seemingly terrible pencils. Also, there are 3 different colorists, which might explain why the final section of the book just looks and reads so much better than the first 2. Like, it actually has depth to the art style, because this is, like, at the beginning of, like, full-on digital coloring, and they got all the gradients and shit, whereas the first 2 or 3 issues are just so... Like, I love flat color. That's why I made the Custodians Agents of Cross flat color, and with little to no gradients or anything extra. I stuck very closely to a 1970s DC color guide for every color in the book. So I love flats. I love flat comic book color. But it just looks awful in these first couple issues. Like I said, just everything about it, it makes me sick to my stomach to look at. It's just so fucking cheap looking. Christ, this is a bad book. I did not have a good time doing this. I thought it would be a classic Marvel Ultimate comic where it's so dumb and edgy and bad it's good, but it's just no fun. There's a poor woman gets raped. This fucking crazy rich psychopath is getting let loose after he's firebombing places and paying thugs to try and kill people and raping girls and trying to kill women in the park. What the fuck? There's nothing that is earned here, nothing that makes me want to read anything more about these versions of the characters, which is probably why nothing really ever came of them outside of the occasional Ultimate Spider-Man appearance. If anything, what this book makes me want to do is go and read the mainstream version of Daredevil to get the awful taste of this out of my brain mouth. This was also a very early foray into the Ultimate Universe, like I was saying, in 2002, very early on. And like I mentioned earlier, there is another Ultimate Elektra series. Why? But at least I think that one had Mike Carey writing, so that's like a strong suit. He's a pretty good writer. I enjoy his stuff that I've read for the most part. But then they just brought back old Sal for some inexplicable reason. I've never read that one. Let me know if you have. And what's it like? Oh my god, I never want to discuss this section of the Ultimate Universe again, but I suppose I'll have to eventually one day when I get around to covering this second volume of this Ultimate Elektra series, which I'm pretty sure that one might be called Ultimate Elektra and Daredevil. But that day will not be soon. As always, let me know what you thought in the comments below. Follow me on Instagram at NotBlakeWild. Check out my Etsy shop, BlakeTWild@Etsy.com, Patreon, patreon.com/Smokey's videos, and come by and say hi at YumaCon 2024 if you are in the area. Bye!